Lumpkin was born in Gill County, Kansas, August the 31st, 1894, the daughter of Frank and Raleigh Lumpkin. My mother's name was Mary Geralda, but was nicknamed Raleigh. I was born at home with my parents' friend and neighbor, Ellerina Snyder, giving me my first bath, and later helping me dress for my wedding. At about the age of 4, we were living with my mother's parents. We moved from there on a cold winter day to a farm my dad had bought. Possessions were loaded in farm wagons drawn by horses. I rode on the wagon seat, all bundled up, beside my dad and one of his neighbors, driving. It was so cold that day. On the way, we stopped at a neighbor's house to take me in and warm me up. They were happy days at the farm, gathering eggs and hiding eggs from my sisters at Easter time. In gathering eggs, when we would come to a nest, for the setting hen was on, that frightened us, so we'd have to wait until Mother could come and pull the old hen off. Anyway, we played in the playhouse, made in the trees, and my sister Albert and I, we took turns doing the turning of the butter. Each one of us, and we had better be ready to take over at the count of 100 strokes of the geyser. Every morning we polished the steel flatware with brick shavings kept in a box affair made by my grandfather. Also the chimneys of the coal oil lamps must be washed and polished. The fun to climb too on the top of the porch roof where the corn and peaches were drying. We had peach trees on this farm where we lived, and a lot of fun was as we would come home from school in the fall to run down and pick peaches. But also Mother needed to dry many of them later for winter use, and was up on the top of the porch where she did this. I mustn't forget to tell about milking. There were 2 cows, Old Blossom, and I forget the name of the other cow. I always had to milk 2 cows, along with my sister, who of course milked more than that. But we had a lot of fun. We learned many things, visiting with each other. My sister was to take the 8th grade examination, and in order for her to review some of the things that she needed, was sure she would be asked questions of at the examination, she would review with me. And so it was there that I learned the names of all the presidents up to that time and the dates that they served. The only chore that I remember helping with the garden was that my sister and I would be supposed to do the dishes and tidy up the house of a morning, while Mother went out and tended to the garden. The only thing I remember about helping in the garden was that the potato bugs would get on, and my sister and I were given a can with coal oil in it, and then a stick, and we would have to knock the bugs off with this can of coal oil to kill them. Also, we had to hold the potatoes, and oh golly, how long those rows did seem. But it was something for us to do and add to our duties in helping with the family. What kind of sewing were you taught to do? Well, my mother tried to make a seamstress out of me, but I just was the awkward kind. Sewing wasn't for me. These 2 sisters of mine were very handy and could make things, and I was always sticking my fingers with my needle and all. Besides, they also teach me to embroider, which I was not adept at all. It was just I was awkward and all. In later years, I did do embroidering, crocheting, and knitting, and not much knitting, more crocheting, and sleeves, embroidery, tennis stitching, and tatting. I really did tatting. That was quite a fad at that time. I had one aunt that, boy, her fingers could fly with this tatting. She could do it without even looking at it. I never became that adept. But I really kept at it, and I never could sew dresses or anything like that. But my sisters learned, and I really had to do some because I couldn't have any dresses if I didn't. It was very hard for me to do any of that stuff. I'd rather be out running around playing, have fun, playing games, climbing trees, and so forth. At that time, of course, at that time in my life, you could not go to town and buy these ready-made clothes like you can do now, so it was necessary for my mother to make everything we wore. And this, these three girls, I had one sister that died before I was born, but the three of us grew up until my younger sister was 14, and then she died, and she had to make all of her clothes, and also her own clothes. I don't know how in the world she ever did it, but her underclothes, or panties, or skirts, never did we wear jeans or pants of any kind. We just wore dresses. Our hair was combed. My hair, I had, very pretty hair. My younger sister had pretty hair with a bit of curl in it, and they cut her hair, bobbed it. But I wore mine in two braids, one big braid on each side of my head. And when I was, as a younger little girl, when my mother would be combing my hair, and my grandfather would say, I looked at, oh, Mary, you look at the peeled onion. And I bet I did look like a peeled onion. My father was a teacher, a school teacher. He had taught school, ended up teaching more than almost 20 years. I never went to school to him, but he sometimes took us to visit his school, and always at programs, he always had my younger sister and I performing, sang little pieces and singing little songs. One day he decided he would let me go to school to visit him. We were each riding a horse. My horse fell down, and immediately, of course, I was scared of frightened to pieces, and Dad said, Mary, now just stay on, old Joy will get up. Sure enough, she got up and on we went. But that was my first experience of riding a horse. Later I rode horses all through my life. Anyway, then when I was 6, I started to school. Happy school days. I loved school my whole life. Loved to have been, I did teach 3 years of school, but I would love to taught school all the rest of my life. Anyway, we walked about at least a mile, maybe more than a mile to school. My 2 sisters and I, and then there would be neighbor kids, you see, would be 6, 8 of us all walking to school together, carrying our lunch pail with a bucket, with a tin bucket with a lid on it, and I can't remember what we had to eat, but I'm sure it was plenty. And we little girls, we would try to make up to the boys, and hope that the boys would offer to carry our tin bucket or our book. Anyway, it was a school I attended as a child for my first 4 grades. 6, 7, 8, 9, yeah. My first 4 grades. It was called the Lone Tree School. In the yard of this school was one great huge oak tree. We used to climb that and play around on the branches with Moons and the Assessors. Moons and the Assessors, we played Black Man, and I can't think of any other game. I remember in the winter we played fox and goose and snowball, and I remember the boys liked to catch us and wash their faces in the snow, and just a regular good time. One thing we did, I think, I know it'd be unusual even later on in school, but especially when my children came on and off, would have been unheard of. At noon, at NSS, we would push our desks all back in sort of a circle, and then we would square dance. And we had gone with our parents to these square dances, so we knew the call to the square dances was there. I learned the call to the square dances, and we danced with the music of one of the boys playing a harp, just an ordinary harp. And then I remember, I think one thing I might tell at these dances, I had a dress that was a long princess dress, but at the very bottom it had a ruffle on it. It was about 6 inches wide, I imagine. And I loved it when the boys would swing me around to have that skirt all flare out. And, I felt real snazzy. Actually, I should say harmonica. It was not a stringed harp, it was a harmonica. And he could play it quite well. He'd learned to do it himself. What kind of toys did you have to play with? That's a good question. And In recalling, I can think of, I had a doll. My doll was, of course, a china head that my mother had made the body. And I was lucky, I guess, even to have that. Then one Christmas, I got this idea. I asked Santa Claus for a tea set. I didn't know what a tea set was, really. So when I got my tea set, I was so pleased. It was little china dishes, little saucers and some little plates and a teapot, sugar bowl and a cream pitcher. So then I knew what I'd asked for. I loved it somewhere. Sometime or other I had heard somebody talk about a tea set. Anyway, then one Christmas I got a little sideboard, I guess you'd call it. It had a little mirror and had a drawer you could pull out. But we didn't have, really, in those days, not too much was made of Christmas. But we did believe in the Santa Claus and always received something. But much to my disappointment, when I learned about a Santa Claus, I had to get up one night to go to the party, and I opened the door to go out of my bedroom door, and there was my dad and mother putting out our Christmas presents before the Christmas tree. Oh, I hastily closed that door, and my heart sank. No, I know, really, it was parents who were Santa Claus. I was so disappointed that I never let them know for several years afterwards that I still believe in a Santa Claus. In the summertime, we played in our playhouse in the trees, putting a string from one tree to the other to make a living room. Of course, we called it a parlor, I guess, and then a kitchen and all. We played there a great deal. Also, I think that was more than the toys that we played at. We didn't have the toys. If it was so they were available, my parents, I guess, couldn't afford them. I think they just weren't available all. Then, of course, the parents, my early childhood, they didn't have kerosene stoves, and it was necessary in getting the supper to make a fire in the cook stove. Mother liked to make a small fire, one that wouldn't heavy wood or heavy cobs or something. So one evening, to get ready to cook her supper, she sent my sister Alberta and I down into the grove of trees to pick up some little sticks and to cook her supper that evening. Of course, kid lies, while we were down there, we got to playing. In our playhouse, we had the cupboard, what we call our goose cupboard and all, orange crates like that. Well, I decided I'd climb the trees while I was down there. We climbed trees all the time. I stepped on this orange crate to climb up to the first branch of the tree and slipped. There was a nail in this orange crate with its head sticking up, which gouged the outside of my right leg. Well, naturally, I was scared to death and hurt like the dickens. So I ran to the house crying, bawling, with blood running down my leg. That was the end of my sticks pickup that night. But in the meantime, then, that wound there became infected. Well, instead of taking me to a doctor to get all these famous drugs they have now or something, the folks, in order to get rid of this infection, they would burn alum, A-L-U-M, alum, and put that red hot on that wound. I screamed and cried. But each parent, not only they held me down, sat on that leg, and eventually, of course, it killed the infection, and I still have quite a gaping wound there, which now, in this day and age of the world, I've been taken to the doctor and had it sewed up. Another kind of interesting thing would be pulling teeth. One of my molars, it was loose, but I couldn't pull it out. I wouldn't let anybody, so Dad decided to take me to the dentist. And on the way, he cautioned me about I'd be a brave girl, get up there and don't cry now and everything. So I just sat up there so big as everything, and the doctor, the dentist pulled it out, and Dad gave me a quarter, and was I ever thrilled. In my love of playing out of doors, I was with my dad a great deal. He needed to plow down on the South 80. So he let Alberta and I go along. It's great fun to play in the plowed furrows, nice fresh dirt between our toes. It was necessary for him to clear off this area of dead weeds and things, and he had cleaned that off and put it into piles and burned it and left that kind of smoldering. So as Albert and I were playing along in the fresh dirt running up and down, somehow or other my dress got too near one of these smoldering fires, and my dress caught on fire. I was scared to death and started to run to my dad, and he saw what was happening, so he called, "Stand still, Mary, stand still, don't run." Of course, he knew that by running there'd be fans in the flames. He soon reached me and rubbed out the fire in my dress, burned a hole in my dress and my petticoat, and as the scorch cleared onto my pants. I remember feeling so excited at my mother and raising up my dress and showing my scorched pants, because I thought I'd really escaped a burn. Of course, we all had this children's diseases that we were supposed to have now. Of course, they're vaccinated against all this. In whooping cough, hardly knew that I had it. My younger sister, Alberta, she nearly choked to death several times. I just was immune to so many things. Then when we had the measles, everybody had the measles, but lamb's legs I barely broke out, and I skipped around and everything. My older sister, who was 6 years older than I was, she had a very sad case of measles. Was very sick and was confined to bed for a long time. When we had sclerotina, my younger sister Alberta had very hard. I never even got sclerotina. So somewhere I was just immune to childhood diseases, and those were the things that we had. In those days, we had great fun with cousins, and we happened to live, possibly less than a mile from my mother's brother and his family. And they had 3 girls there, along about our 2 girls' ages. My sister Augusta was the oldest, and then Edna, our cousin, and then I was next, and then Ethel, and then Ellen, and then Alberta. And we had great fun together playing. We used to play in corn cribs and have our houses in the corn cribs. And that was a nice, happy memory of our childhood together, our cousins growing up together. Also, when we became older cousins, when we got older, and we had moved to town, Albert and I used to go down and visit our cousins who still lived on the farm. We had so much fun down there. Aunt Minnie was this type, she'd let you do anything, absolutely anything. One thing we used to do and have so much fun was pulling coffee. Of course, we cooked the syrup and get it cooked, at the right temperature and everything, and then let it cool, and it would be so hot in our hands. And instead of putting butter, we had lard on our hands. Of course, that lard got worse in the process, and we'd drop it on the ground, we'd pick it up and wash it off on the pulling coffee. Still was awfully good in all that. And then another thing we used to do, there was a Church of God or something down in their neighborhood had a church that they would hold revival meetings, and we would go down there. We would ride horses down there and then flirt with the boys. We only went down so we could flirt with the boys. Never did we go into the church meeting. And so that was lots of fun. We'd flirt with the boys for them to get on and ride the horse with us. And so, anyway, young folks having fun. I was 10 years old in August, and then that same fall in October, we moved to town. My dad had bought a hardware and an implement store. And so we were still young enough, my sister and I, to have happy, good times together there. The days were happy there. We had, the schoolhouse had, it was a 2-story schoolhouse with about half of the first 8 grades in the first floor, and the other half in the upper floor. We played, there was where I played baseball and black man and all those games, and just tried to learn to ice skate and sliding down hills and all. From 10 until I was 16, my sister was 14. She developed appendicitis that fall. It was rough days. You didn't just have an operation. Just let a doctor cut you open on any old pretext. And my folks just couldn't give in for Alberta to be operated on. Finally, when they did give in, it was too late. Her appendix had ruptured, and she was just full of gangrene. She was at the hospital, I don't know, a short while because the doctor said they knew they couldn't do anything for her. So she was brought home and laid there. Goodness, I don't remember how long it was, but several weeks, just dying. It was very hard on my mother. Nowadays, I know, of course, they would have saved her. But in those days, she died, and I was devoid of a loving sister. Great understanding we had. But anyway, then, I was alone because my older sister was married, and I had brothers. But I felt a loneliness that I didn't get over, ever. I don't think I ever got over being a lone girl with my brothers. Brothers were awfully good to me and still are very close to me. But there was something losing this loving sister, 14, and I was 16. I believe I'll go back to my early childhood spent on the farm for eating. I know we had time to eat, but we didn't have candy and stuff like that. Very seldom. We did this little country store. I can't remember being rewarded with anything, maybe a stick of gum. But we would have, for our lunch, this would be before I started school, while we were just at home when Dad was teaching school. He would be away, of course, at the lunch hour. Mother would have milk in a skillet, and then she would pour in flour and make it into kind of a dumpling, and then we would eat that. We called it Aunt Minnie pudding. It was called minute pudding, but we would call it Aunt Minnie. We had it Aunt Minnie, and we called it Aunt Minnie pudding. And we liked it, and we ate that for our lunch with a little sugar on it. Another thing before going to bed that we had real often, I remember, for supper, was crabber milk. Just been talking to my granddaughter, she doesn't even know what crabber milk is. But anyway, we had crabber milk. And we'd have a little bowl of sour crabber milk with a little bit of sugar on. That was our supper. And it seemed to be clever. Anyway, I never did go to bed hungry, and I grew up a good, healthy gal. Oh, another thing, we've been having a big chuckle. My great-grandmother sitting here. Got to get funny things. Anyway, another thing we would gather in the spring would be a certain kind of a weed. And I know many of my age, of course, remembered. Even now, I had a friend just the other day saying she had some of that old-fashioned spinach that we used to go out and pick. We knew we could identify this weed. And I forget the name of it, but it made very good greens. And then Mother would boil some eggs and serve over it. It was awfully good. Oh, yes, and another thing is, people my age really remember, of a spring, of course, we didn't have tomatoes or lettuce or anything like that all winter. And to clean out our blood so that we had molasses with sulfur in it, all stirred in it. And that we had to eat every day. Clean up the blood for spring. So I didn't really mind the taste of it. It was regular molasses. It was more than just syrup. It was a heavier, not like a sorghum, but kind of between. And then sulfur was stirred into that, and really it was kind of good. And especially it kept us from having boils, which we used to have boils very frequently. I guess dating would be interesting to tell about. My father was real strict about dating. And I must have been, at least 17 or 18 before I ever had a date. Then our dates, we didn't go to shows. There wasn't any show in this little town. Recording? Our dates, we went to church socials, as would be composed of young people in our Sunday school class. which I suppose mean then numbered probably 18, 20. We went to Sunday school every Sunday. And these were Sunday school parties at which we played games, party games. And they were composed, it actually was almost square dancing. We were not allowed the square dance, of course, but dancing anyway at that age. But we would play these party games, and I know there's a lot of fun made of playing post office. I remember at one party we kind of started to play that, but the hostess didn't put a stop to that. Goodness sake, going to another room and kissing that. That was really out. And so there was all kind of party games. We had a lot of fun and good companionship, and always the hostess, the mothers would usually have homemade ice cream, as I remember, that she ground in an ice cream freezer by hand, and then a cake, and we'd go home, and that was it. Another thing I did want to tell was, usually were country boys. Of course, you had a horse and buggy, maybe two horses and a buggy, and one thing was to ride around the section. That would be a 4-mile square, sectional land. And that was fun to ride and maybe smooch a little bit. But after I started dating Roy Kirkpatrick steadily with my really steady boyfriend, he used to take me down to my school where I thought he would go down on Sunday night and come after me on Friday night. Going down on Sunday night, all you had to do was to wrap the line around the buggy whip and the horse moved away. And of course, that gave a very sweet smooching, ho-ho. Naturally, being a female or girl, and I think boys are the same, you always have favorites from way back in school. And the special presents would be maybe a special Valentine, when you had a Valentine box at school, and maybe occasionally at Christmas or a small gift. One gift that I still cherish, and it would be while I was in high school, was a young man I dated occasionally, Ralph Hutchinson, and he gave me an autograph book, which I still treasure, still have. Time, a young man, a high school friend, gave me a bottle of, it was real cologne. Boy, that was really something for me to have. I had taken we had no high school in our town, but I had taken a few high school subjects. We had a teacher who taught about 4 of us who had already graduated, passed examinations, graduated from the 8th grade, but we went back to school, and she taught some high school subjects, about 3 high school subjects that the high school in Smith Center, our county seat, gave us credit for. Then when I went to high school, I had to board with the family. Now it was only 7 miles away. Now we would have a car of our own and drive back and forth. Now we would have a car of our own and drive back and forth. But then you didn't do that. You didn't have a car, and so we boarded. And I boarded with a Mrs. Matson, a very fine family. And we'd go up on the train on Sunday evening, and then go back home on the train Friday evening. I could get to school all week. After Mr. and Mrs. Matson, there was another girl going to board there, and her name was Mary. Same as mine. Mrs. Matson said, "Well, how am I going to tell you, girls?" After Mrs. and Mrs. Matson, she said, "Well, how am I going to tell you girls apart now?" And me, in my crazy way, somewhere or other, not realizing that I didn't like the name Mary. I hated it. So I said, "Well, why don't you just come a smarty like? Why don't you just call me Marjorie?" I thought that was really snazzy. So she said, "All right, call you Marjorie," and Mary Copenhagen, the other stuff. When I went to school, we had not enrolled till the morning we would go to school. When I went to enroll and all, some of my friends who'd come up from Bel Air on the same train, staying up there someplace else, said, I said, "Say, do you know I got a new name?" And I told them the experience about it. And he said, "Say, why don't you register as Marjorie Lumpkin and you be named Marjorie?" And I said, "Yeah, Gee, that would be fun, wouldn't it? More as a prank than as a net. Of course, the teachers didn't know Miss Mary. They only knew Margie, and I was raised as Margie, and all my grades were given as Margie. When I took my first grade, coming home from my dad to sign, I could tell you, he nearly hit the ceiling. Why, it was terrible. His Mary changing her name to Margie, but I liked it. I just kept it. And ever since then, I would be over 40 years, just been Margie, and short Marg. I'm Aunt Marg, and I'm just Marg. And practically, it really was a stupid, silly thing to do, to prank, which hurt my dad. And my mother never called me anything but Mary. And Dad didn't either. In an automobile accident. And didn't have him. Then the name Kirkpatrick was so long after I was married, and I started to work in the bank with my husband, and signed drafts and everything. Kirkpatrick was so long, instead of, I didn't want to put it Mary because I didn't like the name. I didn't want to put it Marg like that. So I signed MC Kirkpatrick. And when my husband died, then all the investments are in my name, my land and bonds or anything else that I had, with MC Kirkpatrick. And that was caused by the fact that Kirkpatrick was such a long name. I didn't like the name Mary. I hadn't been married for long. I was saying Marg, and Marg is not my real name, so that's what happened. It's kind of silly, isn't it? So when this came up, because Mr. and Mrs. Mason, where I was boarding, I wish I just told him to call me my full name, Mary Cole. I would have liked that, but that didn't occur to me. And the other was just out of fun and everything, but it developed into I'm Aunt Marg, and that's it. The interesting thing is my passport is made out the name of Mary C. But when I travel overseas, I had an affidavit when I first started traveling, still carry an affidavit signed a sworn statement that MC Kirkpatrick, Mary Cole Kirkpatrick, Marg Kirkpatrick, Margie Kirkpatrick is all one and the same person. Other names, sometimes this is R.R. 1916, Christmas Day, 1916, I married Ralph Kirkpatrick. That was a leap year, and all before you never think of being married in a leap year, because I just found life that I had asked him to marry me wasn't true there, because we had dated each other, I guess, for about 3 years, and each of us teaching school. Well, anyway, our problem was what situation should he go into to earn a living for a family that he expected to have. We discussed it at length, and he decided that he didn't want to go ahead and continue in the teaching profession. I would have loved that because I like teaching, I like school, and I love teaching school. But anyway, we talked about being a pharmacist in a drugstore or something like that, and having a drugstore pharmacist. But finally, he decided he believed he'd like to try being a banker. So he left and went to Salina, Kansas, to a business college, and got the certificate of graduation from there, and then went out to Moreland, Kansas, on a job. Then he wrote to me. We had been engaged after 3 years. He wrote to me and said he would be back at his Christmas vacation, and let's be married then. And that's how come we married on Christmas Day, because he was there for his vacation. And then turned out, actually, that was his grandmother's wedding day. But we didn't know it at the time. So that's why we chose banking. And since he was there, and I just followed along and became a bookkeeper in a bank, a vice president of a bank. And first I was an assistant cashier for years, worked beside my husband. While the sons were growing up, and we had 2 sons, and while they were growing up, I was at home and did not work steady at the bank. But because of, when anybody went on a vacation, I would take the hard, take their job in the bank and work at it while they were on vacation, or if they got behind, they'd say, well, Marg wants to come down and help us with this farming or something. And I was in touch with it all the time. Then years went on, and the oldest son, Joe, was in college, and he almost was a junior in high school, maybe a senior. And it was one of our men in Bearsville was crying, and Dad said, well, Marg, you come on and work now until we get somebody else to take his place. I went, and I just worked from then on. I worked in the bank steady until I retired. Susan thinks it would be of interest. Dad's first, my husband's first job was in Moreland, Kansas. There he was a bookkeeper, and in a small town of Bogue, the cashier there was ill, and was necessary to have get someone else to run the bank. And it just happened that the man where we lived in Moreland lived just across the street from us, and owned the controlling interest of the Bogue Bank. So he came over one evening and asked, how would you like to go to Bogue, Kansas and run the Bogue Bank? Well, of course, we were tickled to death because in Moreland, my husband was only just a bookkeeper, and of course, while there to help with our living expenses, I gave music lessons. So we decided, gee, this will be wonderful. So we went to Bogue. That's how we went to Bogue, and husband was 23 and I was 22. And we started on that bank, and we worked there for more than 40 years until he died in 1957. Oh, yes. Another interesting thing you folks might be, and this would be when we were held up. It was during the 30s, I think it was 1933, and there were a lot of robberies that were around, near us, in the towns around there, for holding up banks and one thing and another. One night, I knocked into our door. I was in bed. I had had a miscarriage, and I was in bed, and Joe was practicing his trumpet lesson by the piano. Dad was sitting there listening to his practice. He was in their bedroom, fooling around, and knocked into the door. Husband went to the door, and we were being alert because we thought we might be held up. But anyway, husband reached up and unhooked the screen door, and this young man said, I want to talk to you about a loan. And he unhooked the screen door and let him in, and he pulled a gun out of his pocket, and he said, this is a holdup. You behave yourself, and you won't get hurt. Well, that made my husband mad. He's mad as the dickens. And so he noticed that the gun, it was not an automatic. He noticed that the trigger was not pulled back on this gun that young man held. And my husband had a gun cabinet out in the kitchen, and he just started to back up to get out into the kitchen to get his own gun, and it frightened the young man. It certainly shows that he was an amateur. It frightened him, and he just opened the door and went out. And of course, Joe came in. Joe came rushing in. I knew something was going on. I was in bed, and he came in, and all excited and everything, and I said, of course, husband ran right out with his gun and ran around the house, heard the young man running down the street. I said to Joe, well, okay, now let's be calm now. Let's think about what we should do. And I said, Joe, get up there at the telephone. It was up on the wall, and call the operator. We had the operator right in our own town, and spread the news that we had been held up, and the man is at large, and for everybody, that we had a vigilante organization. And so all the operators, he alerted the man, and they went chasing and went down the railroad track, and they just hunted in the boxcars and everything else all around the building to find the young man. Never did find him that night. But later, in another holdup, where he had gone out and murdered an old man, an old wealthy man that lived out in the country, and had murdered him, and somewhere or other they could connect it with him, and it turned out that it was the same young man that had attempted in holding us up. He said to us, he said, you behave yourself. And he said, you behave yourself, we're going to rob the bank, but we're going to hold you here until the time lock goes off at the bank. And so that was really quite a hair-raising experience. And we locked the doors then. We never did lock the doors. And then, of course, we locked the doors whenever we go anywhere. We'd just be scared to death, you know, and, I mean, just nervous about the whole thing. And we always kept the doors locked, and for a long, long time. After a while, we got so we relented and became not so nervous about it. But also during the same summer, we were sitting out on the back porch on a settee we had out there, and two young men came around the corner of the house and sort of startled us. And right away, we both jumped up, just thought, oh dear, here's another holdup. But it turned out it happened to be a couple of local boys that we knew, and you can see how nervous that made us. For several weeks after the holdup, nobody ever came over and knocked on our door to come in. Our friends and all would call and say, well, we're coming over this evening, or is it all right to come over? So you can see it was a very nervous tension for all during the whole summer. Also, one evening, we slept on this back porch during the summer, and one evening something had gone wrong with the car, and the husband had taken it down to the garage and just left it. And so some way or other, the men in town, they were alerted that there was maybe somebody in town trying to break in some other kind of a building, and they thought, well, they should see about Kirk. Wonder what's happening. If anything happened down to Kirk. They came down to our house, saw that our car was gone, thought we had been apprehended, and they were just frightened to death. And finally, one of the men who worked at the bank said, well, let's sleep out on the back porch. Maybe they might be there. And sure enough, they came and aroused us, you know, and they had thought maybe, you know, we had been abducted, and because they had been abducting the cashiers of the bank through the president. And it was really a very nervous time during all that whole spring and summer. Oh dear, how can I describe the awful, awful dust storm? It was right started in the fall of 34 and the 35. These clouds that go up, you think it's going to be a nice rain cloud. It's absolutely nothing but dirt, dust. That would descend on you. You could hardly see other across the room, because that dust seemed to come in actually through the walls. All the windows, everybody, they taped their windows all closed, and around the doors and everything but that. And then that would come into your houses. Well, I never even thought of getting breakfast until I cleaned up the sink, the dust. All bric-a-brac, all that was put away. Everything nice like that was put away. The overstuffed furniture was all covered with sheets. And the carpet, of course, in those days you had rugs. And the carpet, where the rug got off, and the carpet, the wood around the carpet, there was just a little jump off there. You could no more tell it was a carpet on the floor than anything. It just absolutely covered itself. There were really worried about the boys, my mother, because he didn't dare leave his window open at night because of the dirt coming in, because it came in anyway. And if you happen to go to the next town, and you might be caught in this storm, coming home, and it's so hard to get home. I remember one time we were caught, and husband driving, and I were looking very low on the looking on the very lowest, I could tell whether we were going too far to the right. And then he would straighten up the car, and then he had to be careful not to go too far to the left. It was very dangerous. There were pneumonias who people who did die. And I know we had one friend who was a singer, and she happened to be caught on one reason actually lost a very lovely singing voice. The dirt went into the attic. I really can't describe. The crops were destroyed, the piled up against the fences, and we were not in the real bad, farther on in western Kansas, which was worse. but we were close enough. It was a very hard time. We only lived a block from the school. And many days, several days, we didn't let the boys go to school because of the get lost of going that one block. If one of these residents came up during the day, it was arranged with the youngsters who came in from the country, they wouldn't even try to go home. The bus would not even try to get them home. It was all arranged. If the best friend came up during the day, certain children would stay. We had two boys, and this would stay with us, and this would stay with us several times. And everything kind of went on. We had Sunday school anyway. We'd go over and clean out the desk and dust off the pews and that and the organ and that kind of Sunday school. And I
Well, if you were married at 18, let's see, and in 5 years had babies, about 23.
23,
And Joe was 20. So if he's about 7 or 8 there, you'd be about 31. Then maybe.
So I imagine that's about her age I was.
About 31. Okay. And then then you'd have been about 26 or so when he was born. Do you remember when you had this taken? Did you have it taken in Hill City? Or?
Yeah, it would be Hill City. We had to go to the road. I can't remember. Some of these I do remember, but I don't have to remember that. But it's good. I'm glad. And it might be on mine. I have the aces. Because, oh no, that is mine. That's one you took out of my album.
Yeah.
Yes. So, it could have been on the margin. It's written on the...
Could be when you take it back.
Yes.
Right.
And,
you know, that's your wedding picture, right?
I remember my mother making that dress.
Your mother made that dress?
Oh, yes.
Oh.
You had to... You didn't go out and buy a wedding dress then.
Where did you get the material? Did you send for it, or?
No, I imagine we got it at the center.
It looks like you have satin
Let me
shoes.
see now, Bel Air had a real, the Hall store was a real nice store with see, I have trouble bringing out the words that I want. Oh.
A dry goods store?
They had a dry goods department. And had both. And I imagine some other got them there. And this was insertion and all that stuff. And I remember, I was kind of fussy about it, you know. And I said, oh, that's not right and everything. But see, she made a kind of a hem and put a cord right there to see the top.
Oh, yeah, that was a lot of work.
Oh, yes, it was a lot of work.
And it looks like you have satin shoes on, which are real pretty.
Yes, that's right. I remember those. I made the sleeves long, you see, and up here that way.
Well, you got married in December, so was this before you got married or after?
Oh, this would be after.
After.
Yes, this would be after we were really married. Looks like his collar's a little high.
Yeah, they wore him kind of stiff then. For sure.
Well, I was telling Ryan, you see, the piano, the upright piano, with a great big box. I made a big box.
Yeah.
The folks, their piano, in an upright. And actually, that was what was the kind of piano Ryan and I had first. It's one of those big upright. But anyway, they had kept this big box with their piano head, and that is what we packed my things.
Oh, really?
And then different things that Mother would think, well, now maybe you can use this and you can use that. And Dad would come up once in a while to see how we were getting along. He'd come up to the hardware store.
Oh, yeah?
To see how we were getting along. And then anything that I had saved, and then so we packed that and moved it by train.
Oh, goodness.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it was
Well,
real heavy then, wasn't
We
it,
had to
too?
go by train. didn't
Yeah.
it? The same way when we moved from Moreland to
Mm-hmm.
Bogue. Train. They didn't have those trucks and things like that.
No.
Oh, that was a long, long time ago. Now I can't remember this. And I was thinking I decided how old I was then. Two. I would be more than 4, but Alberta doesn't look like she's more than 2, does
No,
she? And that would just make me 4.
Right. You said you remembered the other day, they made you make a fist around the rope on the swing in that picture.
Yes, see?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So my hand wouldn't just spread out. Make a fist like this.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh. That's right. See how that is?
Yeah. Those were nice dresses. Did your mother make those?
Oh, yes. And Augustus, too.
Well, you were telling me today about how you washed. You had to put a big pot of water on the stove and heat it up.
Oh, yes. You had a boiler, we call it, you know. And you had to fill that up the night before. Well, I was filled it up the night before.
Mm-hmm.
Put it on the stove. And you had to heat that. That was your wash water. Sure. And then build a fire in the stove to heat it. And then you bring in your washing machine, and you had to operate it with your hands. You know, you had to operate it.
You had the ringers and stuff.
Or turn. This one, I'm sure mine was this time. And I don't think Roy ever helped me very much with that. He could have. He wasn't any hand to help around with that house at all. No.
Well, he had so many sisters, don't you think they kind of spoiled him and he didn't have to do anything?
He only had 2 sisters.
Well, in the pictures he's got a whole bunch, doesn't he? In the picture of he and his family, I thought he had like 4 sisters.
You're thinking of my dad and mother.
Oh, okay, that could be.
My dad and mother.
Okay.
Because Roy just had
2
Merle
sisters.
Merle and Lois.
Okay.
And Lois was younger, quite a little bit younger than he was. Merle was older and married when we were married.
Okay.
Yes.
Then I must be thinking you're dead because I have a copy of those pictures.
I imagine that's just about right. 2 and 4, and that would make Augusta 10. So she looks like, and of course Mother has made her dresses. See how long she made it?
Yeah. They're so nice. And you were talking today
oh my God, but I don't remember this. I remember that. Of putting my hand there. And then these little things were open, you see, these little vest like, and you could put things back in there. Maybe I'll find a pin and I'll pin it back there.
Hide it.
I remember wearing that vest. And then the hair had kind of long, I guess.
Did you enjoy having sisters? You didn't like to do feminine things. You said you were more of a tomboy, but did you like having sisters?
Oh, I did. But Augusta, I never was close to her.
Now, Augusta was older?
Yes.
Yeah, she was so much older than you were.
Well, 6 years older, and she was dating by the time I got up much of any age.
Yeah.
I liked her boyfriends and things like that, but I didn't do anything with Augusta. I mean, I was not real close. And of course, then they would come to visit us after we were married and all, bring the family, and especially when she had the little twins. That was nice having them.
Yeah.
And then we would visit them, see them when we went back to Bel Air once in a while. And Alberta and I, we were, well, more or less, close, more or less. But not too much because she liked things much different.
Yeah.
You see, now she loves dolls. And I didn't give a darn about dolls.
Yeah, you like to play sports.
Yes, I did. I was just turned that way. And Alberta they got Alberta, a lot of the dolls had hair and sleepy eyes.
Oh.
It open and close its eyes. And I thought that was kind of nice, but I didn't have any feeling I wanted one because I had a doll. Well, it was just a plain old doll like everybody had. And I didn't fuss around making its clothes and things like that like she did. Well, she was just turned differently.
Yeah.
I think my mother marked me when she carried me. I believe she did, because they wanted a boy so badly, and they were so disappointed. You see, I'd had this one sister that died before I was born. Well, in fact, she's dead about 2 years when I was born. Maudie, Dora. And, Dad just wanted a boy. Just had to be a boy. And here came another damn girl. Yeah. And he treated me that way. And so did Mother.
Well, how much younger is Elmer than you?
Did he?
And Frank?
Well, then now I'll see. Then when I was born. Well, Elmer is 6 years older than I am. So I was 6, I guess.
Oh, okay. They just wanted more boys to help at the farm, or?
Well, I just think a man likes to have a son.
Yeah.
And he wasn't a son. And he didn't have anything. The son is then after I came in, here came Alberta. She's younger. And then they had 4 sons.
Okay.
With that little John. He died just as he wasn't even 2 years old.
What did he die of?
He wasn't very well. I think Mother wasn't very well when she carried him. And he really wasn't a very strong baby when he arrived. Now, that's the way I understand it. And he just didn't, he never took off to be a real healthy little boy.
Well, you always told me that you really didn't know your mom was pregnant, did you?
I didn't know she was
big secret, and she'd go to visit the relatives and then come back with a baby, right?
No, just now, they talk about it and rub their bellies and everything, and they know it's going to be a boy or a girl and everything like that. No, goodness sake, those were the early days. You got pregnant, but, well, they actually knew how you got pregnant, I guess. I guess they knew that. Looks like they
figured
did.
that out, yeah.
But, and my mother's sister had a big family. And she had one daughter just about my age. And she now is about 2 years younger than I am, I think. And she doesn't even know anybody.
Oh, really?
They tell me she's in a health center. It's in a home of some kind. And I said, I'd like to see Gladys. And they said, well, she wouldn't know you anyway. So I wouldn't make any effort to go.
Yeah.
Now, she had a younger sister, Ruth, and I played with her a lot. But Gladys and I never hit it off together very well.
With the same type.
I was really kind of different in that I was turned so much like a boy. And liked all boy things. Games and everything else.
That's right.
And
you were good at sports, too, weren't you?
Yes. Yes, I was a good basketball player and everything.
Yeah. That's a nice picture of the whole family. I think it says on the back 1935, right?
Mm-hmm. 35. Yes, that's good of Roy.
Yeah.
He's smiling there. That's a real good picture of him.
Did he always wear glasses?
Nearly always. Just years and years.
As long as you can remember?
Yes, really. I can't remember whether he wore them when we were married or not. I can't remember whether he did, but I can't remember when he didn't wear them. And he'd go occasionally and have them changed, of course. And then they didn't do with trifocals either, like they do like they can now. Used to people used to have 2 glasses, 2 pairs.
Oh.
One was to read by, and one was to live by. Yes, nearly everybody had 2 pairs.
I see.
Let's see now, we're down to this.
Yeah, that's when you were in school.
But you don't have the picture of, oh no, you're having it made.
Oh, which one?
Of me and my son.
That's this one.
Oh, yes. Oh, is this the one you're having? Oh. Is this one you have for Father's Day?
That's the one I thought about.
Oh, yes.
I thought that'd be a nice picture.
Yes. And it's good. I do too. I like that.
It'd be nice.
Now, that would be nice. No, I thought was it you or maybe it was Susan? You know where I am just with the boys. Pretty good. Oh, it's been since Dad died.
Oh.
And I guess it was Susan. And I didn't think she chose the best one with me.
Well, could it be the pictures at the reunion? There were some pictures of you and your sons at the reunion.
No.
No, it was before that, huh?
Oh, no, it's going to be that one. Yes, the ones I like that.
Oh, good.
And you have a negative made? And ready for it.
So, now this one's really old. This one's school in Bel Air, Kansas. And there's the teacher. It's nice how you labeled everyone, too.
Yes. My teacher was Maud Vetter. Yes, see, Maud Vetter. And then, you see, I had already graduated. I had graduated from we took county examinations. The county sent in the questions, you know. And I had graduated, and so had Jenny Markmiller. But the folks wouldn't let me go on to high school until I waited for Alberta. Well, and she died.
Yeah, and she died.
So that made me so late getting in high school.
Yeah, 2 years you had to delay.
Yes.
But you had to go away to high school. On the train.
Yeah, to the train.
And you lived in another house, didn't you? You roomed with some
boarded with Mr. and Mrs. Matson. Mr. and Mrs. Matson. And $5 a month. And I'd go, and then several of us, we'd go up on the train on Sunday night, and then go down on the Old Jersey. That's before your time.
Old Jersey?
Old Jersey was the name of the train, just a small, kind of a local train. It's about 2 or 3 coaches or so.
How long did it take you on the train?
Oh, about 15 minutes.
That's not bad. But you lived in Bel Air, so where did you go to high school?
Smith Center.
Smith Center.
And boarded with these Matsons. And there was another girl from somewhere. I think she was from the country. Anyway, she was going to board. They were going to board both of us. And her name was Mary, the same as mine. And I said to Mrs. Matson, now, she said, oh, now, let's see. She said, how I designate between you two Marys. And I said, well, you could just call me Marjorie. And I was kind of smart alecky, I expect, you know. And why I said it, I don't know. Why I did, but I did. And I went to school the next morning, and here were these girls who lived north of Bel Air. They were in high school, too. They were ahead of me about it. Maybe they were sophomores when I was a freshman. And I said, oh, Bertha. And I said, oh, I've got a new name. And I was telling them why. They said, say, why don't you just give your name as Marjorie Lumpkin? And she said, and then you just have a real name. And I said, well, that would be kind of fun. I said, what's the difference? So I just gave my name Marjorie. And I went home to her folks, and Dad was, he was disappointed. He was so disappointed in me.
Yeah.
And everything.
Because they had given you that name.
Well, sure. And they just, what I think they didn't, after all, I got a little deal in my purse. I'll try to get it out. Because I carry it about the name Mary. There's a lot of people who don't like the name Mary. And I hated that name. See, there was Augustus. Now, to me, Augustus was a pretty name. And then the other was Maudie. And then here was Alberta. And then Mary. No, I think they were so disappointed I was a boy. They said, oh, well, heck, give her Mary.
But wasn't that your mother's name? Didn't you find out years later that was your mother's name?
I didn't know that was my mother's name.
But as it turned
out, her name was Mary Geralda. But she never was called Geralda. She was called Raleigh. Aunt Raleigh. And that's all I knew her name. was River Valley.
Mhm.
And finally, years later, after I was married and all, some papers came up with some kind of header. I said, Mother, I didn't know your name was Mary. And she never had told me or anything.
You would have liked the name a little better if you
Oh,
did.
yes, I would not have changed it.
Right.
No.
Uh-huh.
And then also, there was an aunt. One of my dad's sisters was named Mary Bell. But she never was called Mary. Aunt Bell. I never knew her name was Mary. She was Aunt Bell. And it kind of, it bothered me. And then when it came to, when I went to work at the bank, with Kirkpatrick's a heck of a long name. He's Joiner. There's Kirkpatrick. There's a letter. Such a long name. And I said, oh, Roy, can't we do something about this? I said, signing cashier's checks and CDs and everything. Kirkpatrick's so long. And I said, I think I'll just use the name MC. So I did. That's how that started. And then after he was dead, then when it came to changing the, I can't think of the word, changing the investments that we had, the lawyer said, well, how should I put this, Mary or Marg, or how should I put it? And I said, why don't you just put it MC? So I just carried the MC right through. But now, Joe is fifth, and we're doing everything in Mary C.
Oh.
See, my middle name is Cole, C-O-L-E. If I'd have gone ahead and just put, instead of saying Marjorie, if I'd have said Mary Cole, it'd been a lot better. But
yeah, but when you're 13.
Wouldn't that be fun anyway?
Well, how did you get the middle name Cole?
Well, that's what they gave me. That was my name.
But why did they give you the name Cole? Was it a family name?
My mother's maiden name.
Oh, okay. So her name was Mary Geralda Cole.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Mary Frank Lumpkin.
Okay.
And she was only 17, and she was his scholar. He had graduated from a business school or something, some kind of a college, and came to Kansas in the early day. Oh yeah, he had to come and make his mark in Kansas. And he had a sister and her husband, Finn and Allie Holloway. They had been here for several years. So when he came, his sister and husband had him come out. And he had this education and had a teacher's certificate. I believe he taught school maybe in Iowa a little bit. He was in Iowa. And so he just went ahead teaching.
That was unusual in those days for him to have such a high education, wasn't it?
Such
a high education? Was that unusual at all?
Unusual?
Unusual, because he was so well educated.
Well, yes, it was. Yes, it was unusual. And he fell in love with, so he had this school and fell in love with one of his scholars, which happened to be my mother, and he was 6 years older than she was.
6 years.
She was 17, and he married her.
And her maiden name was Cole, and that's why you...
Cole, yes.
I would think that's special, that they named you Mary Cole. That meant that you were pretty special to them, because they gave you the names that she had.
I don't feel that way. I don't think I was special at all to them.
Well, but I think since they named you that, they obviously felt so. But
well, let's go one further. I don't think I've ever told you this, and this is well tell us. When Alberta died, Mother had a special friend, Aunt Allen Snyder, and her husband. They were real close friends. Uncle Johnny was the one who played the fiddle, and I seconded on the organ, on the piano. And I learned this 5 or 6 years old I was doing it.
Gosh.
Uncle Johnny trained me. And Augusta happened to hear my mother talking to Aunt Ella Remensnyder. She was so upset because Alberta died. And she told her that she could give up either one of the other girls easier than she can Alberta.
And that kind of hurt, didn't it?
That Augusta and I, that just crushed us.
Yeah.
And he give up either one of us or other than Alberta. It did it. It affected me. I know it did. It wouldn't now. I wouldn't do that. But I could see now why Alberta was a loving, sweet, and she's much prettier. She was such a pretty girl.
Was she pretty?
And she had such pretty hair and everything.
And she died of appendicitis, didn't she? Her appendix burst?
Yes, she got sick one night, and her side hurt, I guess. I don't remember. I remember her getting up, though. We slept together in the same bed, and the doctor thought it was appendicitis, but the folks wouldn't give the doctor's consent to go ahead and operate. Now they just do it. Okay, that's the thing to do. But that was a real decision in those days.
Yeah.
They just couldn't give in. They thought they'd, I suppose, give her a laxative and work it off, you know. But she just kept getting worse and worse. So finally they had to give in to have her operated, and by then it had ruptured. And it went all through her body, and she died.
And she was like 13?
She was 14.
14.
Yes. Yes, that was awfully sad for them and for all of us. It sure was. But
so you must have been about.
But after hearing that, you can imagine how we felt like. And I imagine much of it was, and mother never called me Marg. It was always Mary. Mary, my girl.
Yeah.
Mary, my girl.
That's okay.
Yes.
Well, where did they originate in Iowa? Was it Ole? I have it written down someplace where the family originated in Iowa. The name of the
Panora.
Panora, Iowa.
Panora, Panora, Iowa.
That's where the family originated.
That was Dad.
That was the Lumpkins.
That was the Lumpkins.
And then they moved from Panora. Where did they move?
No.
It's just Frank came down.
No, they lived and died in Iowa. The parents.
In where?
His parents never came to Kansas, but his sister did, and her husband, Allie Holloway. He has 7 sisters. You know, he was the only boy. Spoiled rotten.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yes. And Josephine, she came to Kansas and taught school. She met a lot. She was younger and she was a lot of fun.
Well, was Panora in Iowa or in Kansas?
Iowa.
Iowa. Okay, and that's where his family lived and he was raised?
That's where he was born and raised.
And then he moved to Kansas and moved to Smith Center or to Bel Air?
No, Bel Air.
Bel Air.
And lived in Dighton, Bel Air.
And lived in Dighton.
Well, it was automobile accidents, you know. See, he was a representative.
That's right.
He had it. I forget how many terms. Three, I think. Anyway, he campaigned once for senator, but he lost. He was beaten, and but he was a senator, representative, and they were going. My four of the representatives from that area around there were going down to Topeka, I suppose, for some kind of political business, and they had this wreck, and Dad was the only one who went out of the car. He's the only one.
And did they go in a ditch, or did he?
No. I don't know, it just swerved or something. I don't remember. I said down my mom, no, I'll ask him.
You were about in your early 30s when that happened?
Yes, we were married, of course. And, yes, we had Joe. because Dad was so proud that I had a boy. Yes, that's right. And he killed him. He died as he went out the car. So he killed him right then. He didn't suffer. And the boys, Elmer and Frank, went down to pick him up, and they went on to the meeting after the boys got there. They did. The other three men went on to the meeting, so it was pretty important that they had to. Yes, their mother lived alone
till she was 94.
Yes, she was almost 95. No, she gave up that home. Now I can't tell you. She lived there for years, and finally we realized that she just had to see. Brother Roy was still alive. Brother Roy was still at home and was there with her for a few years. And then she was entirely alone. So I forget just why, but she finally gave up and went to Smith Center and lived in a place where they would keep old people. This is family. They didn't have any of these places now like they have for old people. And she just lived there and paid the board, so much.
That was nice.
And let's see what else about it. I think she is pretty happy because just recently at Joe and Ruby's, Ruby ran across this letter that Mother had written to them, and she said, "Come up and see me. I have such a nice place." And Elmer and Dorothy lived in Phillipsburg. That's where she went, Phillipsburg.
Okay, and that's where she lived in the home?
Yes, that's where she lived in the home and died there.
In Phillipsburg.
And she was 90. She was just not another month. She'd been 95.
Oh, almost me.
But Dorothy said, instead of waiting till her 95th birthday, Elizabeth in Phillipsburg, why she said that she was going to have a party for Mother, and so we had it on her 94th birthday.
Well, that was good. What day did she die? Do you remember? What year and what day?
It'll have to come to me.
Well, I was pretty young, about 8, I think, or 6, so.
Oh, yes.
It might have been about 1956.
And she had really good health for an old person that age.
She still had brown hair, too.
Yes, she did.
And she was...
and she didn't have a big belly, either.
She was quilting and everything, up to pretty much the end, wasn't she?
She what?
She was needleworking. And
yes, she got to where she couldn't use the needle so much. But what she did, she always kept her hands busy. And that's what I think, if I could just find something to do with my hands. Well, what Mother did, she took these wire coat hangers, and wrapped it with ties. Do you all have any of them? Well, I'll have to send you one so you'll have one of them.
Yeah, that she made.
But she thought of that, And
kept her busy.
Oh, she was a busy lady. I think she used to do all that and do all the washing almost by hands, and everything.
Well, you were telling me today, too, you hung it out to dry, even in the winter, and it would freeze.
Big long line.
It freezes. She called it frozen dry.
And for a few years, Mother had that she went to, after she gave up the house and kind of distributed things, or tried to, she would live about 4 months with each of the children, with me, and then with Gus and Earl, and Elmer and Dorothy. And then it was while she was living with Elmer and Dorothy that they found out this lady, or this family, whichever it was, would take an old person. We thought it'd be better for Mother and a lot better for Dorothy. Yeah.
And she seemed happy there.
Yes, she was happy. She was used to it. Oh, she had a good philosophy. She really did.
Okay.
Yeah. I didn't appreciate her right at that time as much as I do now, these later years. Yeah,
Well,
And because Dad was the kind of a man that, my dad was, well, he was bossy, and he didn't let the, one thing he had was this thing called rheumatism. His arms were stiff, never hair. Or so I guess it was what is this? Certain kind of, they call it rheumatism, arthritis. I think it was arthritis. Or rheumatoid arthritis. Yes. So he was handicapped that way. And then he didn't believe in women's rights like they do now. Because you see, there's a car he got, and then this Mr. and Mrs. Matson, I'll go a little further, they had a store, a lovely store, and after school I'd go down there and work some, just for fun. They had me doing things. And so one day Dad came in and said, "So come out here and see what I just bought." And he just bought a second-hand car. And Elmer, you see, was 6 years younger than I was, and he could drive, but he wouldn't let me even drive. Oh no, a girl driving? No way. Didn't need to have a girl behind a car. So he was just of that old generation.
That old school. There was
anyway,
a place.
I had to bring that in.
Yeah. Well, men had their place and women had their place.
But he was always proud of our grades. We made good grades. And let's see what else should I tell about him. And now like on Sunday night, he'd hand me $5, and that paid my weekly, my rent. So this thing, it boarded me for $5.
In high school.
If they did, I was going to do the same way. But I had to have some spending money. And so I thought the other day, I wonder how I got that spending money. Sometimes I'd have $2 or $3.
Well, maybe the Matsons gave you money for working at the store.
I think maybe they did. I think maybe they give me $1 or so, you know.
Yeah.
That he didn't, and you know, with a teacher's certificate, you get a third grade was your first. Then you got a second grade. Then you got a first grade. After you taught more time and more examination. And I remember he was praising me that I had my first grade certificate. Yes.
Because you had the experience. Did you enjoy teaching in your?
Yes, I like teaching. The only thing I didn't like about it, see, I just taught country schools, and you had all grades. Now, I think I was a good teacher and everything was first grade. I don't believe I was a good first grade teacher. I don't believe I was. I don't think I had the patience or something. But you see, I had one school I taught. There were 4 kids that graduated from the 8th grade, and their folks couldn't afford or didn't send them on to high school. Wasn't in high school in Bel Air. You had to go to the center. And they came to my school. And I thought, oh, what do I do with those big kids? They're 14, 15 years old, and they're already graduated. How would they give a darn about the school or anything? And I just wondered what in the heck I was going to do with those big kids. And to discipline them. You had to have discipline, and made that many more grades, and I had to teach too. Didn't mind that. So I thought of the idea. Dad had gotten a tennis court, badminton. What do you buy a tennis oval? A net. Yes. We had that at home. He got that for us. And so I asked him, and We had tennis rackets and all. Yes, he provided things like that. And then I remember something else I was going to tell you he got for us. Well, anyway, I asked him if he would care if I took that net and the tennis rackets out for those kids had already graduated, because they didn't intend to go any farther than that. They didn't give a darn if anything would be boring, so he let me do that. And so during the noons and recess, well, I would keep them busy with that tennis.
Mm-hmm.
And it worked out all right. There was no discipline with them.
Mm-hmm.
It was 2 boys and 2 girls.
How many kids did you teach in your school?
Well, not long ago I got out. Always teachers at the end of the school year gave a certain little booklet, and I got that out. I expect I had 16 to 20, something like that.
That's a lot to
And
teach.
nearly all grades.
That was a job.
Well, yes, it
And
was
keep
a
them all
job.
occupied. And
But nothing fazed me, except I was scared about the discipline. And I did have some trouble too.
mm-hmm.
And with some dad would tell me about so-and-so had to whip this boy or something,
Mm-hmm.
And I was concerned about it, but I never had that trouble. I just got along all right with the kids.
Well, that's good. Well, how
But it
long?
was an experience.
How long did you teach before you married?
I think it was only 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
I'll have to look it up. I think it was only 3.
And Granddad was a teacher too, wasn't he?
Oh yes, that was it. You see, he came from Iowa with his teacher certificate and started to teach school right away. And that's when he met his mother. My mother then was one of the scholars.
Yeah. But my granddad, Roy, wasn't Roy a teacher
Oh yes,
too?
he taught.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, he taught. He taught before he went down to business college. But he felt like I'll probably taught more years than he did, because probably just a year, because he wanted a little more education so he could get a different job. He didn't want to keep on being a teacher all his life.
Mm-hmm.
And so he decided to go to business college down in Savannah, and that's when he sold his horse and everything, horse and buggy. And
Did you do that to get money to go to the college?
Yes, sure did.
What was the name? It's called Salina Business College?
Yes.
Okay. What did he study, like finances?
I don't know. But anyway, it was we were engaged, and as soon as he could get through school, as soon as he could go to business college, and get a job, why we'd be married. But we put it off. We were engaged, and I went ahead teaching.
Mm-hmm.
And then he didn't telephone. I guess he wrote, "Get ready for the wedding." Because here this bank at Moreland sent down an SOS to the college. They needed a bookkeeper. Send them a bookkeeper. And Roy heard about there something and accepted the job.
And it was in Moreland,
At
Kansas.
Moreland.
Uh-huh.
So immediately gosh, I can't remember. It was during a school term. I know I wouldn't have quit during a school term. But anyway, I went right ahead getting ready to get married.
Well, you got married in December, so maybe it was in between sessions.
Evidently, or maybe just as... I can't remember.
Because you got married on Christmas Day, right?
Christmas Day. And we didn't know it at the time, but his grandmother was married on Christmas Day.
Oh, really?
But we
Nice.
didn't know it.
Uh-huh. Well,
He was to come in, surely he'd take the job, because he'd be the boss in both.
oh.
And in Moreland, he was the bookkeeper.
How long did he work at the Moreland Bank?
Well, I thought it was about 6 months, but in looking up some records the other day, I think it was only about 4 months.
Well, that was a wonderful opportunity.
Oh, yes, indeed it was.
Uh-huh.
And so, yes, I said, we'll go. And we had to move, but loaded all of our stuff on well, of course, I had to move a train.
That was a big deal.
Yes, more than the Vogue.
Where did you live when you first moved to Vogue?
Well, it was a little square house, a little square.
Frame?
And it was for rent, and we took that. And then later there was a house over on the western side of Bel Air, Bold. And we moved over there, and then this house just across the street was for sale. That man died, and that was for sale, and we bought it. And that's where we lived in for many years.
Oh, the one I remember?
Yes, the way the boys were born and everything.
Someone already had built that house, and you just bought it.
That's
bought
right.
It from them.
We remodeled it and added on to it some after a few years. After we were married, a few years, we could afford it. And we lived in 3 houses. So we're on the telephone. Your gal's pretty.
What all do you remember about Vogue in the early days? Was it kind of hard to adjust to living in Vogue?
No, it really wasn't hard, because Roy had worked here very long, so he needed another bookkeeper, and he put me to work. And that helped us, and then that helped us with the finances.
Were the people real friendly?
Yes. Yes, they were friendly. It was really a nice little town. Yes.
How far were you from your folks then? Was it quite a little trip?
It took a day to get there.
So that might have been a little hard, huh? If you were real far from all your relatives.
I can't feel like it was. I was trying to think of myself then. I didn't, because we had a good job, and we were trying to make good in the job so we could get ahead. We didn't have any money, and we needed the money to get ahead and to buy things and even to eat. And I can't remember that I got sick. They'd come out every once in a while, because Elmer could drive. You see, Dad never did drive. He had a car all his life, and he never did drive. I mean, he had a car after he finally bought one.
He just didn't want to learn? He didn't want to learn how?
Well, he didn't think he could because of his
his arthritis. That's right.
Rheumatism, they call it.
Yeah.
I'm sure it was just arthritis. But Elmer goes ahead and drives now. But then the cars are different now. They're easier to drive a car now than it was that time, wasn't it?
Yeah, probably so.
Was it cold in the winter in those cars?
Yes, it was cold.
What kind of car did you have when you married? Did you have a car?
Oh, no.
A buggy?
No, we didn't have anything. We just lived there until we could afford a car, and of course the car had curtains on the side. Didn't have any curtains on.
Curtains?
I have a picture of that.
Do you? I'd like to see that. It had curtains on the side.
Well, sure. And we'd have them down in the summertime, you know. Yes, it's one of those kind of cars.
I bet it was real cold in the winter time.
It wouldn't be a very big engine, would it? No.
I wouldn't go very fast.
No. No, that's right. Oh, no.
Well, you bet you saved a real long time for it, huh?
Did what?
Did you save for a long time to get that car?
Oh, yes. I expected we probably paid so much a month.
Yeah.
Probably borrowed
Down
from the bank, probably. And paid. I can't remember.
But it had curtains. That's great.
Then you take them down and you can put them up, see? But during the summer you never put them up unless it rained.
Yeah. Did it have a roof, a top on the car?
Yeah.
Well, my dad remembers riding in some car when it was real, real cold. He has a story about that. Well, What else do you remember about Roy when he was younger and a boy? Where was he raised?
You mean Roy Kirkpatrick?
Mm-hmm.
Well, he was been raised in Sabetha.
Sabetha?
In eastern Kansas.
Okay.
Sabetha, Kansas. And now his mother's mother lived in Bel Air.
Oh.
Grandma Snyder. And how his dad, William Kirkpatrick, got acquainted with Lena was the name. How he got acquainted, I don't know. But anyway, they lived in eastern Kansas, and he is where he was born back there, and was grown, and then he was supposed to support her when they moved. Then when he came to Bel Air, when she came to Bel Air to be near her mother, and she bought a house just across the fence. There was Grandma Snyder, and Grandma Snyder was a lovely old lady. She taught Sunday school. She was my Sunday school teacher for years and years.
Huh. And that was.
And as Joe tells me, she told her she smoked, and Joe said she taught him to smoke.
You didn't know that, did you?
For a grandma to do that.
Thank you.
Teach him to smoke.
But you liked her a lot, then, huh? She's a nice lady.
She was?
She was a nice lady.
Yes, she sure was. She was a good old lady. My mother and her, she was a good friend of Grandma Snyder.
Was she?
But no, that's the reason I know that his father had died.
Bill.
His father died, William Kirkpatrick, and is buried back there in eastern Kansas.
In Sabetha?
Yes, Sabetha. And just him and his sisters. No, his younger sister, Lois Wilson, but she soon married after they moved to Bel Air. She married a Smith Center boy.
Oh. Well, he had two sisters then, Lois and what was the other?
Merle. And she was quite a bit older than Roy.
Roy was the baby of the family, right?
No.
Lois.
Lois.
Lois, okay. He was in the middle. Well, how did you ever meet Roy?
Well, just in Bel Air. Well, how I come to meet him, we had a basketball. The town of Bel Air had a basketball team, and I was on the basketball team, and he was too. And he played on the boys' team, and in that some way or other, I got acquainted with him.
Oh, through the team, the basketball.
Yes, the basketball.
You remember your first date?
No.
No?
No, I don't. I should. Well, I had already dated quite a lot of the boys around there. Ralph Hutchison and Frank Wright, and I remember them. And
so did Roy graduate in Sabetha from high school, or he met?
Yes.
Oh, he did.
Yes, he graduated from Sabetha in high school. That's right. And I believe he had his teacher's certificate. But he might have gotten it after he moved to Smith County. He might have done that. I don't remember. Anyway, he started teaching school right away.
When was he born?
Well, he's about 2 years older than I am. So I was born in 1894. He was probably born in 1892.
What was his birthday? What month or day?
I knew it by heart. See, so many of those things are slipped out of my old mind. Seemed like it was October.
October birthday?
13th, I believe.
October 13th?
Yes. No, Bel Air was pepper. It was a peppy little town. It was just a small town, I think, but it was a peppy town. And I knew some boys from Esmond. See, this that alley when I told you about came to Iowa. They lived in Esmond, and there was a Merle was my age, and we'd go back and forth on the train. Well, I lived in the train area. I loved the train.
Yeah, I bet you missed it.
Rode it hundreds of times.
And it was a major
and
part.
even when Uncle Finn and Aunt Allie would visit us, and we'd visit them, we'd have to go on the train. That's the way you travel.
Yeah, and it brought the products and goods to this town too. Didn't your father have a dry goods store or a hardware store? Hardware store. Did he do that before he went into politics or after?
No, that's while he was in politics.
While he was in. What was the name of your store?
I guess it's Lumpkin.
Lumpkin Hardware.
And then he finally added. He had all on one street was all Lumpkin. He had a cream station. Really, I hired somebody to run. Elmer's the one that could tell you about that.
Well, he was quite a businessman then, wasn't he?
Oh, yes, definitely. Yes, he was one of the leading citizens in the community, you know. And we had two churches, Methodist Episcopal and Methodist Protestant. Well, the Methodist Protestant was a kind of a growth over the Methodist Episcopal. I've never known an MP church any place but Bel Air. Always the Methodist is an ME, Methodist Episcopal. But anyway, somewhere or other we got started on the Methodist Protestant. And Mother worked there in a ladies' aid. And we went to Sunday school. Every once in a while we'd have a party. Our Sunday school class would have a party, which was boys and girls both. And then Grandma Snyder would stand up there with her Bible and teach us.
When was it when your father moved off the farm? He just decided he was tired of farming, didn't he? You remember what age you were when that happened?
Yes, I was 10 years old.
You were 10. So then you moved into town, and you kind of missed the farm, didn't you?
Yes.
You missed playing
more or less.
On the farm.
More or less I did. And the playhouse, where I got the scar on my leg because of our playhouse.
You fell out of the tree?
Yes, I was climbing trees. No, you see, we're kind of getting mixed up. No, Dad was not a good farmer. It was with figures and something like that, or being a politician or something. But to be a good farmer, like you got to work to be a good farmer. And he didn't do anything. In fact, Uncle Finn was a farmer, and he was real good, and he used to worry them about bad. And finally, then somewhere or other, this Bel Air hardware was for sale, and Dad bought it. Then we moved, and I was 10. And I milked, you know. I had 2 cows. See, Dad didn't do his milking. I guess he couldn't. And Augusta and I milked the cows. Now, a little girl, 8, 9, and 10 years old, I had 2 cows, Old Roan and Old Blossom.
Old Rome?
Roan and Old Blossom. And I didn't think anything about it. After all, I was supposed to do it, so I did it. I didn't mind it. And you know darn well we didn't milk them good. I bet I didn't strip them like I should, you know how it is. But we did the milking.
Well, but it did kind of upset you then when you had to move into town.
Well, yes, I didn't want to move. It was just a childish
thing.
The
farm.
Yes, I did a childish thing.
Where did you live in town? Did you have a nice house that you liked?
I think we went right to the house where we lived when I was married, I believe. I'll have to find out more about that from Elmer. I think we did. The only house I can remember is that same house, except I know that they built on some.
Added
because you have the family.
I have a picture in the living room.
Yes, you have that
with the piano. And
well, you see, that was pretty good, quite a family. Augusta was still alive. There was Elmer and Frank.
Yeah, that's upstairs above the piano.
I believe we lived in that same house. Well, I know what they did build. They built on some. But it was, then you were more isolated. Now a small town, you're not isolated because with cars and everything. And I like with, even right today, too many people come to Hayes who still live over there at Bel Air and Vogue and everything. They come to Hayes to do the shopping at in the mall and some of those big stores, you know what I'm saying? And that's killing those towns. There's been a lot of pieces in the paper about not staying home and trading.
But those days you couldn't get around.
No, you couldn't get away. You just had a nice little town.
Unless you took the train.
Yes, that's right.
You remember first time you knew about airplanes?
Oh, I sure do. I'll tell you that story.
Okay.
But now, like with and then during the summer, a lot of times we'd go to Smith Center to trade at the dry goods stores and like that. And there was a certain time we knew that the train was due, and we better be there, ready to go home. And it would always give a big whistle before when it was coming in, and I have run many a time and just barely got there. We would have to get on.
You have fond memories of that whistle, I bet.
Yes. Yes, you see, that train came through, that Amtrak train came through Hayes, and we went down, and I just enjoyed it so much, the big old engine. But even then, the engine, I think it was only a 3-wheeler, and the engine we used to have had four of those big wheels. I said, oh yes, I don't want to miss that. And Joe said, no, we don't, any of us want to miss it. But especially me, because I knew more about the train than he did. We tried to get a seat to look out the window and see.
Yeah.
Well, now my first experience was this. Where we lived in Bel Air, just the next block south of us, and there was kind of a vacant lot or two between us, so we weren't real close together, but far enough they could shout across to each other. The man ran a blacksmith, and he had a car. He finally got a car. And it was a car that the back seat, okay, come on, honey, come on. Come on down. Come on. And that back seat he could take off. He could take it off, or he could take it on. And especially when he needed to work on the motor of the car, so he'd have it all working on a car. Anyway, he would yell, they had a boy about my age, Frank Wright, and Mrs. Wright would call out, Mary, come on, take a ride with us, we're going for a ride. And I'd ask Mother, yes, I could go. So of an evening, they'd go out for a ride. And Mrs. Wright and I would sit in the back. Okay, of course we chugged along, and it wouldn't be very fast, but all at once Mr. Wright going along, he happened to remember that he had set that seat on there, but he hadn't fastened it. So, in order to kind of turn around to tell us to watch yourself, he got out of the highway a little bit, and putting it back in, and just twist that seat now wheel. Mrs. Wright and I landed way down there. That was my first experience with the car. And he was scared to death that we were hurt or something. Because we're going down this little hill, and it was kind of deep down in there. And the seat, what he was frightened about, that the seat might fall on us. But it went on some different way, and there we were down there.
Scared you too, didn't it?
Oh, yes, of course, after it happened.
How old were you, do you think?
Oh, I would be along about 11. 10, probably soon after we moved there, 10, 11, 12, along in there. And I thought Frank was, I thought he would be the man I married.
Oh, really?
Oh, I was sure he would be the one.
He had kind of a crush on him?
Yes, I did. I don't know if he did on me or not.
I bet so.
I did on him.
I bet so. Frank Wright.
But they moved away from there. I've just often wondered what happened to them.
Yeah. Really?
But they moved away. But the folks let me go even after that. Of course, he saw to it he never left that on the hook again. But that was my first experience with a car.
With a car. How about an airplane? Do you remember the first you ever heard of an airplane?
Yes. Let's see now. My first experience with a plane. I'll have to think about that a little bit. I know it wasn't a very big plane. Or where it was even. Let's see, now we lived at Bogue, of course. It doesn't come to me yet.
Okay. Why don't you tell me where the relatives are buried now? Where is your mother buried? In Phillipsburg?
No.
No?
No, you see, then the sister Maudie, when she died, now I don't know what she had, but she really died. She got sick one night, I understand, and because not too long ago we ran across a letter that Dad had written to his mother in Iowa, telling about the little girl that they'd lost. And anyway, she died pretty fast. She was sick a long time. And they buried her down there in Jewell County, in a country cemetery. It's called Odessa.
Odessa?
O-D-E-S-S-A.
In Jewell County.
Oh, I have a regular booklet about it.
And this is where Marg was buried?
That's Maudie. Maud Eudora.
Marg.
And so, of course, and when Dad was killed, well, he was put down there too.
With
So
Marg.
they're all buried down there.
And Augusta and your mother?
Alberta. Not Augusta.
Yeah, Alberta.
Alberta. And they put Alberta there, and Maudie, and there's little John, the little boy, John.
That was that too.
And then Dad, and Grandma. My mother's buried there. And they keep it up. They keep up the church even.
Oh, do they?
We make a donation every year to the church. Yes, it's a country church. And now Dad, he was a good Bible student. He really was. But after he moved to Bel Air, Mother never could get him to go to church or anything. But he sure attended that country church, and was a good Bible student. And they attended regularly. I remember that church so well. Well, we didn't go there for Sunday school, so we just went right there at Bel Air.
Oh.
But then Dad wasn't home. And as I say, he was a good Bible student. He was well-read, read everything, well-read, and then had a photographic mind. He was saying everything so well.
Oh, that's wonderful.
But I'm sure he would be classed as one of the leading citizens of the time. I mean, those time, it was,
he's a civic leader and everything. A good businessman and a politician and a leader of the community. Bet you were proud of him then.
Well, yes. But he didn't have the knack. But I think it was my nature that I was hard for him to understand as much as anything. I think it might have been that I wasn't real close to him. He wanted you to do And he'd be proud if you made your grades and things, but he wouldn't tell you to yourself or anything.
Oh.
So it might make you vain. Something, I don't know.
Well, did they really show their emotions as much in those days, the men?
No,
Men didn't cry and...
No, I don't. I think that's true.
Yeah, maybe they just did not show them as much.
I think that's it.
As they do now. And women were expected to take care of the children so much. So the men...
You're supposed to have children.
And take care.
You're supposed to get pregnant and take care of all the house, the washing and everything else.
Yeah.
The washing and the ironing and the cooking and everything.
Men took care of business. And children were kind of seen and not heard in those days, weren't they?
That's right.
So it's different these days of how parents relate to their children. So.
Yeah, it made a lot of difference. I can see that. Yes, now you could talk with America about most anything. All they wouldn't talk to me about a thing, you know. I don't know when they told me about menstruating. I can't remember. Well, I expect that was quite a deal for Mother to do that. Now you know.
Yeah.
No, I think it's much better.
They just didn't communicate as much, did we?
Well, I'll try to think of something else.
What are some more of the things you remember about the Kirkpatrick side of the family? Let's see, they were big eaters.
Yes.
Big stocky people.
Yes.
Were they from Scotland and their ancestors mainly?
I don't know. I didn't know his dad, of course, because his dad was, but I'm sure he was a very fine man. I'm sure he was. But, no, we would have chicken. They were great eaters. Have fried chicken and I would eat a leg because that's all was left. You know, the time we got around those little kids. And that's all I wanted, or maybe a thigh. And they would just sit and eat piece after piece after piece. The whole family just were big eaters.
Did they have rounded faces? You know, Hugh seems to have the big cheeks and a round face.
A little bit, but not what you call a round face, not like you. No. Maybe Merle was a big fat lady, and Lois was pretty much so, but not as bad as that. And Lois taught school. I didn't know Merle very well because they lived back in Sabetha. She was married before they ever moved to Bel Air, you see.
Okay.
But Lois was younger even than I. And then the boy she did, a Smith Center boy, Curl, Glenn Lowry.
Glenn Lowry. Is who she married?
And
she married him?
Yes, she married him. And we used to run around together, the two couples of us, quite a little bit.
That was kind of fun.
Went to some places together. And they had one boy, Bob Lowry, he's still alive. I hear from him every Christmas.
Do you really?
Still keep up with him and his wife.
Isn't that nice?
Yes, it is nice.
So he's a cousin to Joe and Hugh.
Yes.
Right? But have Joe and Hugh seen him for a long time? Probably been years.
Oh, yes.
How old is he? Is he older than your boy?
No, he's just right with them.
Oh, really?
More Joe's age.
That was nice.
Joe. Yes.
And they just had the one son?
They just had one child.
That was kind of unusual in those days, wasn't it? Just to have an only child?
Kind of what?
Unusual, because most families had large families, didn't they?
Oh, yes, because both my mother had large families over my dad.
Was it unusual that you only had 2 children in your day? Did you want more, or you didn't want any?
Well, I did have one miscarriage. I guess you know that.
That's true.
But it was far enough along they knew it was a boy.
Oh, really? Yeah. You would have had 3 sons. Well, you almost died with Joe, didn't you? You almost died in childbirth with Joe. So that was kind of hard.
You see, you didn't have a doctor when you had your children.
Mm-hmm.
Your mother was there to help you, and that was it. Or maybe a neighbor lady or something.
That was tough.
But they had to get a doctor because they could see it was going to be a bad. He was a breech.
Oh, okay.
Presentation. I guess that was part of it. And the lights never got him out. And the wonder he lived.
Really?
Yes, it really was. So I didn't take care of him, and I was sick.
And you
Mother
stayed in
was
bed.
there. Mother stayed with me, and took care of him. Of course, we had to hire a girl to do the work, and then she took me into a home with her after I don't know how old he was, 2 weeks, and I had never bathed him.
Oh.
Yet.
So
I was a big care for her.
Yeah, but in those days, didn't you stay in bed around a month before
you did what?
After you had a baby, you stayed in bed for about a month.
Oh
didn't you?
Goodness, yes. You wouldn't even put your feet on the floor until 14 days.
That was kind of tough, wasn't it?
Yes.
Wow.
Well, but I didn't worry. We actually planned for another baby. We wanted some. Joe was getting older and older, so they decided to get pregnant again, and we're happy for the boy.
Yeah.
And we had the doctor there when I started to have pains. Roy got the doctor because we wanted the doctor right away.
Yeah.
And mother was there and everything. You just go.
A lot easier that time.
Yeah.
Well, how did you select their names? Is there family history for Joe and Hugh?
We had a real time getting his name Joe. We just couldn't agree on anything. And I can't remember what I wanted and what he wanted. I can't remember. But I know we just couldn't agree and just couldn't find any name. And finally, this Joe Bergen was working at the bank with Roy. And his name was Joe. And that's how come we named him Joe.
Because you liked his name?
Yes, well, we liked him as a man. And so we just named him that. And I guess he likes it all right. He's used to it. And I liked it all right, but it kind of astonished people that we cared that much for Joe Bergen, who works in the bank, that we cared that much to name our baby for him. And then Hugh, we couldn't decide on a name for Hugh. And finally the name came up Hugh, and we decided on Hugh. We agreed.
Both liked it.
We agreed on Hugh.
Well, that was good. How did you come up with his middle name, Richard?
He doesn't belong to anybody.
It doesn't?
No.
It wasn't Roy's middle name.
No, his name is Ralph, Roy Ralph.
Roy Ralph.
And he had a cousin, Roy M. Kirkpatrick. I don't know what the M was for. But the two boys were, I never saw him. But they were about the same age, so I heard. Is Roy M. Kirkpatrick and Roy R.
I see. Well, yeah, Granddad was always RRK. Well, I wonder why you selected Richard then. Maybe to have another R. HRK. What was Uncle Joe's middle name?
Eldon.
Eldon.
I guess we just like Joseph Eldon. I guess we just like it. We should have birth announcement. Yes, it was really something for Marg and Roy to have because we've been married 5 years, you see.
And was that real unusual in those days?
Yes.
Wait that
long. Goodness,
yeah, because they didn't have birth control or anything like that.
Right.
People got pregnant a lot sooner.
That's right.
Probably. Well, were you beginning to get worried that you might not be able to have children?
Yes, I really was.
Mm-hmm.
And I sure wanted children. And Roy did too. Oh, gracious sakes. I so hope you haven't been bored with everything.
No,
And it's nice to kind of recall.
It's interesting.
Yeah. Well, it's fun to listen
And
to
I
all
hope
those.
I'll see if I can take some other highlights.
Okay.
What time is it? Is it 10 o'clock?
About 10. Shall we turn it off?
Yes.
Okay.
The name Reuben Snyder was such a long name.
Oh, yeah.
And I was really young. I was seconding on the organ or the piano for Uncle Johnny playing the fiddle. What they call the violin, they call a fiddle. And they went to dances with the fiddle, you know. And and I learned like his spell, and he was so proud of me. It was such a long name.
Yeah, it was. And they were
How did Chad do with his spelling the other day?
Forgot to ask.
I didn't want to ask you. I was afraid it'd be embarrassing.
I forgot to ask. But the Reuben Snyders were just real close friends of your parents.
Real close friends.
So it's kind of like a second mother to you.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Well, and you said you had a lot of real good teachers then, growing up.
Yes, I loved to study, I guess. I guess I must have been part of it. And I was always curious about this and that and the other thing. And I made good grades. Of course, my dad, I'm sure Mother was the same way with her dad who expressed anything. If bring home your grade card, just as like your kids bring home the same way. But this one, Allie Snyder, she married a Culver well. And then she had an older sister, Claire, was about Augusta's age. And she was so nice. Oh, this is recorded, isn't it? Oh. I found something else. I'll go over it now. I'll have to think.
Okay.
I mean, if it's going to be on there.
Yeah. Well.
Because I didn't realize it was going to be.
Well, the Reuben Snyder's children then kind of played with your family. And the kids'
children?
Your,
Reuben?
Yeah.
No, they were all older.
Oh, they were all older.
Now, the youngest child was Sam. And he was older even. They were all a lot. Oh, he could have been maybe Augusta's age. But Sam Raymond Snyder. So I never had a crush on him or anything.
Well,
but his sister Claire, she was nice and visited the folks a lot. Yes, that family were a real close family.
And did they just always live by you? Did they ever move away, or they just always?
They lived on the farm, and they died down in there.
Did they? So when you moved off the farm, then you didn't live by them anymore?
Not as often.
That was probably hard on your mother, wasn't it?
It was. But you see, yes, because Mother being young, she was 17 years old, and then she had her first baby when she was 18, you see.
So she was young, huh?
I found something a while ago. That's the trouble on my mind.
It wasn't about your teachers? You told me you wanted to talk about your teachers. Let's see.
But I thought, I wish I'd had that on the tape, and now I can't think of it.
Well, we can stop it and turn it back on.
Yeah, why
don't
don't you?
Okay, we'll stop it. Okay, Gigi, you want to tell us about your the scar on your leg?
Yes. My mother was getting supper, and of course we didn't have electricity or anything like that, and you had to make a fire in your stove to cook your food. So she asked me, or told me, take one of my little buckets and go down in the grove down there by the playhouse and pick up some little sticks to put in the stove to cook her supper. So I went down there, and instead of getting right at the little sticks and everything, I decided to climb a tree
before I picked up the sticks and for Mother. So I climbed up the tree, which I was always climbing on trees and everything. And I decided it was time to come down. In our playhouse, in the grove there, we had a regular living room, a kitchen and everything. And for our dishes, which was a bunch of old broken dishes, I guess, we had for our cupboard an orange crate. The oranges used to come in, and we had that, and I stepped on that coming down out of the tree. I was going to step on that, then I step on the ground, and it turned, and the nails taking off of this had not been pounded down well, and they all stuck up, and one gouged me on my leg, on my right leg, and immediately the blood started running to the house with my leg all muddy and blood draining along, and Mother tied it up and got it stopped and everything. But during the time of it getting well, I had got blood poison in it. So of course the folks didn't take you to a doctor in those days. They did it themselves, and they burned alum and put that on there red hot when it would be, and they just had to hold my leg down by force because I just howled and cried so much. But that cured the infection, and of course I carried the scar all the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
Mother always said, well, if anything happens, I have to identify you. I can identify you with your
scar on your leg. That must have hurt, though, real bad.
Oh, yes, right there.
Mm-hmm. When that red-hot fire was on your leg. How old were you when that happened?
Well, I'd be less than 10.
Because you were still on the farm.
Yes, we were still on the farm.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I turned off.
Okay. Tell us about...
Well, I've already told about Augusta and I doing the milking when we lived on the farm. Doing the milking of the cows. And at that same time, as we sat there on our little stools doing our milking, Augusta was studying to pass the 8th grade examination, and she would repeat things that to help her memorize, and it helped me. I learned along with her, and I can name all the presidents of that time and the years that they served.